Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South. We are live on Tuesday night, and it's just me flying solo tonight, but it's going to be a good show, man. It's going to be actually just me and Coach Kirby Smart. I'm excited tonight because we're going to be doing a little bit of breaking down of Kirby's presser from his first kind of presser from the spring practices he's taken in. And man, is it a loaded presser. So we're going to go kind of bullet point for bullet point. So it'll give me a little break, missing my cohorts tonight. But Coach Kirby Smart will relieve me here and there. Going to talk G Day, 18 days away. 18 days away. Really don't know a lot about what is going to go on with G Day. I know just a little bit ago, it might have broke earlier, but I just saw it a little bit ago. Game time set. I don't have the absolute last time. The official time. I have heard that dog walk will be at 10:30. I think gates are open at. I don't want to botch these times, but it sounds like to me it's looking at about a 1 o'clock start. Like I said, this is not official, but it's definitely G Day is definitely on. I don't know to what extent Kirby's still holding that very close to him, to his hand kind of close on that. Definitely will not be televised. I know a lot of people are disgruntled about the television thing, and I get it, man. Like, you're a fan, unless you're in Athens, you're not really, you're not really, you don't really know what's going on. You're not able to see what's happening there. Georgia Bulldogs radio will cover the G Day. So, I mean, you can't always tune into, the radio, go old school. And I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, who knows? You may could find a back door like YouTuber. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that over the internet waves, but I definitely think you might could find something. But it will not be nationally broadcast. How clever of Kirby to say the reason why. Obviously, Kirby saying, I don't like being, I don't like being, the time of the day that we have it having to be under, scrutiny. We got to have it at this time. We got to go at this time, and then you have certain time that deal with commercials and in between, and you got to go this many quarters. And I think he wants to control kind of what goes on with this. And this is an ever-changing thing, right? So we really don't know what the future of spring games looks like. There's a ton of teams that are not even having a spring game. So not really sure what the future of spring is. I have heard that Auburn will have their A-Day game, if they call it A-Day. I did see that, but obviously telling the fans they'll have that. They'll have some autograph signings, similar to what Georgia's going to do. But you're just basically going to get an hour practice with them. They're going to have an hour practice. It's an open practice for the fans to come in and see. I did see where Georgia's charging for tickets to the G-Day game is $10 a person. I think that's regardless of if you're. I just think if you got two arms, two legs, it's $10. But don't quote me on that. If you're close to the Athens area and you're going to be going, you might know more than me on that. So, but G-Day is going to happen. So we're going to break down some key points. And I think it would be cool to talk just a little bit about what's going on in the world of, every time you think we've gotten away from this, reckless driving, tickets, excessive speeding tickets, and car accidents that have, taken the lives of players and staff members within the past few years. And you just never like to hear the stories of more players doing things, driving recklessly and at high speeds and getting into car accidents and putting themselves and other people in grave danger. And of course, we had a couple more that happened this past week that have had Nitro Tuggle and Marquise Easley. They've been suspended indefinitely. And so, man, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we don't want that to kind of damper the show tonight. And we're going to do a little take on buy or sell. I have some 4 or 5 questions coming out of just chat boards and things around what's going on on Georgia Bulldog news that's being flirted out there, and I'm curious to see what some of you guys may think if you're in the chats, or even if you're just thinking through the questions as you listen to this, as you follow us on Apple Podcasts 24 hours later. But we'll talk buy or sell. I'll tell you whether I buy or sell the idea of some of these things. But let's get started. We're going to start out. I'm going to bring Kirby onto the stage. Coach Kirby Smart here, and this is the opening of his presser. So let's listen to a few minutes of the opening, and let's dive into it. But here's Kirby.
Yeah, Coach, how was the first week of practice, and what were your initial takeaways?
Long way from good. We are a work in progress. We have the least number of players who have gone through 3 spring practices since I've been here. So that should tell you something. I asked the guys to stand up who have practiced at least 3 spring practices. So this obviously would make their 4th, and there was basically nobody standing. We have a very young, inexperienced group. We really can't practice to our standard because they're all tired. So like we go to practice and it's like great energy, great in shorts, guys learn what to do. And then we start going and it's like, they can't go. I'm tired. So we got to do a better job getting them in shape. We got to probably simplify some to get guys just to go play and not be thinking out there. But a lot of young players, and I need the older players. I mean, old to me is year 2, year 3. That's old, to lead the year 1 guys.
So let's hop into that for a minute. So obviously Kirby, he's diving into, so what is he kind of alluding to here? So a lot of people have said that, he's kind of more gearing towards the freshmen, and his NIL is getting just more in depth. And you got some of those freshmen out there making, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And then also, other players. But I think this year, what this is setting the tone for very early in March is this is a different season this year. This is a different year. There's some things that himself and the coaches have evaluated throughout what happened in 2024. And I think what Kirby's noticing from 2024 was that with NIL coming in, and they're obviously probably as a coaching staff sitting down and going, all right, guys, what do we got to do to make sure we care for these players? Portal is wide open after the season, and then before the season, obviously right after spring. So you're getting ready for another portal window within the next, 15, 20 days. So I think he's wanting to, go back and relook at what they talked about and still honor some of those things. But at the end of the day, I think there has to be balance, right? It's still football. It's still college football. It's still young boys, young men trying to learn how to be men, how to learn how to, not only take care of, some of these guys have, 6 digits of money to deal with. I was trying to figure out still how to, balance a checkbook at some of their ages and figure out how to reconcile my bank account with a couple $100 in it. But yet they have a couple of 1,000 and a couple 100,000, some odd in some odd numbers. And so I think he's trying to keep the main thing, but he's looking back at 2024 and he's going, look, if we're going to do things the same way that we did them in 2024, chances are we're going to get the same result. And I'll be honest with you, you look at the SEC championship and, Kirby repeatedly says, he's like, look, we had one of our best coaching years in a long, long time last year. And we don't know what that's from. We don't know what that's from culture. We heard a lot about drop balls. We heard a lot about Carson Beck and Lamborghinis. And obviously we had our fair share of, reckless driving incidents, jail time things going on that turned out to be, kind of a lot less than it was with Colby. And I'm not downplaying it by any means if it happened. I'm not a judge or anything of that. So obviously something happened there, but it's been taken care of and he's good to go. But we had a lot of those things that were distractive amongst going to class and playing football. And so he's trying to get back to the main thing. He's trying to show them, look, we knew we were going into spring practice. And obviously he says we can't take high school practice and emulate it through college, right? So at the end of the day, I think he's trying to get things back to a standard. So my thing is at the least, he's saying, come in ready, come in shape, come in with a mindset, and you're going to hear it in a minute, but like, come in and be willing to be coached. That's one thing that just discouraged me. So let's add Kirby back, and let's hear the next little piece of this right here.
I feel like half the roster is in their first season at Georgia, not necessarily their first season of college, but their first season at Georgia. And it's been tough. So we got a long way to go, but I am optimistic. We do have good kids and they do work hard.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check that it's not going into overtime before you storm the court. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
If I can't make them stay a little longer, stay here, stay straight, though we feel the shake.
It almost may be too early to be asking this, but what have you seen from the freshman wide receivers through a few short practices?
They got to get in shape. They're constantly tired at practice. They got their hands on their hips, exhausted. I think there's a little anxiety in that. So it's not like they're not taking more reps. So like the older players might have 25 reps in a practice. They might have 20, but they can't sustain their 20 reps throughout practice. They get really tired. So, they're trying. There's no lack of effort, and they're talented. But they got a long way to go in terms of learning what to do. And that's our job. Our job is to get them ready to go. They are not where they need to be.
Yeah, you mentioned, needing to get guys to step up. Is it hard to get that out of guys when they maybe haven't been here as long? And do you guys as coaches feel a need to coax that out of, or is it just something that has to happen pretty naturally as things go along?
No, we have to coach it. I mean, that's what they get. That's what they pay us to do, to coach them. They have to be willing to receive coaching. And on the whole, my whole preach after the practice was, we got a lot of guys that put their hands up. They're offended when you coach them. I'm not talking about the freshmen. I'm talking about in general. So we had multiple NFL coaches come through here, go to practice, and, they talk about how their players love to be coached. They'd love to be given a nugget, a technique that might help them play longer or play better. And some of our guys are offended by it.
It's crazy. So a lot to take in there. So Kirby's going straight for, and I don't know. I mean, a lot of people said, and he has a presser after that, but he said it. He said, I'm not going at the wide receiver group. I'm not going at anybody other than just anybody who doesn't like to be coached. And I listened to a lot. I listened to KJ Bolden's interview. I listened to Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp's interview, some of the guys that are being able to be put in front of the mic. And, a lot of what they're saying is don't listen to the tone, listen to the message behind the tone, right? Because these coaches, they want what's best for you, and they want to coach you at a high level so they can get everything and pull some things out of you that are crucial. So to hear Kirby say this, I feel like he's setting the tone very, very early on. And we're in March. I would call it first half of spring. And then you look at anywhere from 6 to 8 practices in the second half of spring before the G-Day game. And you're trying to get a lot of things done. You're trying to get tempo, right? You're trying to get practice tempo right. You're trying to get players, freshmen, to understand how to practice in an organized format. This isn't like, you come out to practice and the coach tells you everything we're going to do. There's a rhythm. There's things you're going to do in practice that makes practice go, so that you're getting a workout in. You're getting your mind set, because games go like that. There's no downtime. Your mind is always constantly moving and constantly staying focused, and you're learning. And the NFL has raved about Kirby in this nature as being, players coming into the league prepared not only to play at a high level, but to practice every day at a high level and to go into every practice knowing that it's a game-like experience, right? You don't get a lot of that anymore, especially in NFL. But to see this seeping into the college game lets us know, is NIL really something that is crippling or will continue to cripple college football? Kind of like I have people that I know still today that don't watch the NFL because of the fact that players get paid way too much money and they whine and complain way too much. And that's not every player, but there are some. I mean, there's some prima donna NFL players out there, let's just be honest. And I know early on, when I started watching college football, I was that way. I was like, man, these guys right here, and this is before NIL, it was like, these guys right here go out and play for the love of the game. They play for the love of the university. They are a Georgia Bulldog. And some of these guys that you remember, Champ Bailey, the Fred Gibsons, the Robert Edwards, the Quincy Carters, the Mike Bobos, all these guys. When you look back at that era of college football, people were playing 3 or 4 years in college, and it was a different game. You could really, really build a roster, and players were kind of intimidated to transfer because if you transferred, you had to sit. And a lot of them had huge obligations to the universities they committed to. Commit meant something different back then. So he's setting the tone very early on that if this team is going to make it farther than they made it last year, and the goal is to win an SEC championship, win a college football national championship, and then obviously get to the league as far as team goals, then personal goals, then you have to come in every day and you have to be ready. You have to be physically ready. You have to be in shape. You have to be ready to be coached and not taking it personal. And he's setting the standard right now. He's saying, if that's who you are, somebody's going to do these things and be ready to take your spot. So I love that. Let's continue on with a little bit of what he's saying after that. So Kirby, sorry, I never added him to the stage. I apologize. I think you could hear him, hopefully. Let's just keep him on the stage. So obviously Kirby there is, he's alluding to the safeties, and he's looking at the loss of Dan Jackson, Malachi Starks, and the leadership in that secondary. And he's really talking about how, I feel like we have incredible athletes in our secondary. You have Dalen Everett, but Dalen Everett's not out there right now. He has a hernia injury going on. And then you have Daniel Harris, and you have Ellis Robinson, and you have Jacory, and you have Jonell, and all these. So there's a lot of talent, but he's alluding still to how quick this group, and I think this team, has to grow up. And this is a different style coaching now from Kirby and UGA. And I think from every staff in the country, it's different, because I think every year you're going to get to a point where you have more and more turnover because players are going to have more and more options. It's going to be less committed to the name on the front of the jersey and more committed to the name on the back of the jersey. Less committed to the emblem on the front of the hat, and more committed to the person under the hat, as they would say it, which is sad, but that's where we're at. Will reality change? I think it might. I mean, I think you could see a lot of good things. There's a lot of things that could streamline NIL. There's a lot of things that can get the players what they deserve and want, but also get universities and fans that are. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm gonna jump out here and just tell you that I don't know how much longer people can afford to sit in, you know, to sit in the stands in Athens for even some of the lower level games. You know, the Georgia Techs. No, I'm just playing. But you know, the Charlottes and the Austin Peas and the Marshalls, like that's going to be the only game some people can afford to go to unless you have season tickets. I mean, these Alabama and Texas tickets are hitting $500, $600, $700, and we're talking about seats that you still have to bring your $28 binoculars from Amazon with you to figure out what's going on. So it's a world where, you know, money is controlling everything, and I get it that these players deserve some of it, but to the extent of what we're dealing with now, where Kirby's, you gotta understand, these are the first words that he breathes out of his mouth after the opening press conference that kind of set the tone for spring. So he's seen some practices. He's giving you his first glimpse, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "We got a long way to go." I don't think that's based on talent. I don't think we're looking at him looking at the talent and going, "We got a long way to go." I think he's looking at like you can't mince words here. He's looking at kids are more entitled now playing college football with these NIL deals, and they need to understand that you want this money. Now you have to treat yourself like a pro athlete. Like, you want this money, but you expect a coach to tell you you got to be in shape. No. The minute you took money, or the minute you said, "I want to be a part of something like this," even with a scholarship. I mean, guys, scholarships are is a tremendous amount of money to go to a school like Georgia. I mean, there's people that have looked and said, "I would have loved to go to a school like Georgia. I didn't have the money to do it." So at the end of the day, scholarships even are incredibly expensive and important, but yet these guys get scholarships on top of tons of money through NIL. So let's hear what he's saying towards the next part of this.
Kirby, you said some of the guys feel they're offended when you coach them. Is that a new thing, or has that been your whole career, or is that more? I could see it in the NIL era. If you're getting paid, I'd be like, "Well, look, I'm here. I'm getting paid. Why do I need you to tell me what to do?"
Yeah, if it makes it about the NIL era, then there'll be nobody successful. You know, it's picking the right people to coach. Kids that want to be coached don't care what they make. I mean, the guys in the National Football League make more than these guys, and they still want to be coached. So it's not a relatively new thing. I think it's more prevalent than it's been. It's just not it's not new. I mean, guys have always maybe not been used to being coached and being corrected, especially at the volume and level of which we do things. But I think they'll get there. I mean, if they won't, then somebody else will be in their spot.
I love it. So Kirby hops right in, and he talks about, look, here's the thing: the standard's not going to change, so you have to figure that part out. You have to figure out, in the great big scheme of things, what you're going to do. This is the standard at Georgia. This is how we're going to roll. And I think last year, I think some of those standards got minced. I think that we were trying to figure out our way with NIL, and we were trying to figure out how we could do these things. And I don't know, maybe for better words, I'm going to say what the elephant in the room is, they're making money now. There's incentives for them to be on the field. Can we keep them for 2 or 3 years? Can we only play them for, certain downs because they're going to get offended? They're not in there the full time. What is this guy's role? Does he like his role? What does he want to be? Does he want to be prime time? If he doesn't have a great year, is it the coaching staff's fault? I mean, the list could go on and on. So I think last year was tough, but that's why I think Kirby says we probably did one of our best jobs of coaching last year, and I would agree with that on some measures. But I would also agree with you. I would also disagree on some levels, because when you look at X's and O's, I think we have some things to improve on. Is it a lot? I think everybody sees what the improvements need to be, and we'll talk about them. We'll beat them to death. It's all the offseason calls for. And then we have a dead period from April 12th, to July when camp starts, August when camp starts, and then we kick off at the end of August. There'll be tons of time to throw in throw the ideas in the hat about what are the things that can be improved on. I think we could go to a lot of things. I think we could go to offensive line play, maybe play calling by Mike Bobo, maybe our run game, maybe our running backs being healthy. Our tight ends, our wide receivers, their drops, their miscues, their fumbles, their inability to have a consistent, passing game sometimes because of the lack of the run. Having to win some games by making just crazy, miraculous plays in games that we should have won by doing things the old-fashioned Georgia way. And I'm not talking like 1980s ground and pound Herschel Walker stuff. I'm just talking about running the football effectively, doing the little things right, so that Georgia offense from the years where we surpassed over 2,000 yards passing, and we had 1,000-yard rushers, and we had blockers. We had offensive linemen that were going into the draft that were top 5, 10 picks, and that were sustaining in the NFL and not just reaching the NFL. And some of them just downright becoming flops. So it has some improvements there. I've even read as early as today, whereas we're looking at a couple of offensive hires. I don't know the guy's name from Jacksonville, but Jacksonville Jaguars, he was their offensive line coach last year, to come in. And so we're seeking out help on the offensive line. I've heard John Lilly's name thrown around at tight end. And he was with us during the Mark Richt area, I think 2009 to 15, I think it was. Maybe it was 2018 or 2000. He was with us a pretty good while. But John Lilly making a return. So there's obviously some room to fill some voids. And they're shooting right at the offensive line with tight ends and obviously offensive linemen. So we'll see how that pans out. I think the two main points we're getting in this first 30 minutes of the show tonight from Kirby's presser is players are offended by being coached hard, and they're not in shape, and they can't last. So they can't have sufficient practices because of that factor. So I think that's very key to hear. Is it bad? I mean, is it as a Georgia Bulldog fan, is it bad to hear this from Kirby right out of the block? I think some people would say, yeah, it's bad. It probably makes this look like we're young this year. It makes us question, is this a rebuilding year? I think everybody in the SEC and everybody in college football can get used to what rebuilding looks like. I think with NIL, we will be somewhat rebuilding every single year. It's crazy to know that teams that have won the national championship have dealt with NIL rebuilding. Georgia did it the 2 years when they won it. There was literally NIL turmoil in those 2 seasons over certain players. And that's crazy stuff, right? To this day, you look at last year with Kentucky and Brock Vandegrift, and you look at how he saw the chess pieces lining up, and would Brock have stayed if he was the backup, or would Brock have been in there for that game instead of Gunner? Who knows? I think that writing was on the wall. So I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. Would he have stayed, or James Dumas Johnson, would he have stayed at Georgia instead of going to Kentucky? He wanted those snaps, and it's the new way. Before we get off the presser, one of the other big things that's been talked about amongst many things, the offensive line was talked about. running backs. I mean, we have tons of injuries at the running back for the spring. Obviously, Branson Robinson's still out with a PCL. Rod Robinson's still out with his ankle. So I don't know what's going on with all that. But obviously, a lot of good things being heard about Bo Walker, the freshman. A lot of, I feel like he's getting some Nate Frazier freshman buzz. And maybe that's just because we don't have a lot of running backs during spring. So maybe that's the reason why he's getting some of that buzz. But the one point I do want to hear is KJ Bolden. If you have not done so, go check it out on YouTube. His presser, he had 5 minutes with the media, and he talked about guarding some of these wide receivers, these new wide receivers. And I hear Zakarian Branch. I'm hearing that guy is an incredible worker. Like, he works. He's, from time he steps on the field or out of the locker room until taking his cleats off, he goes hard. And so that's good to hear, is a guy with as much upside as Zach Branch, as I call him, it has, and the speedster, and what he's so-called going to be able to bring to Georgia is great to see. I even heard words from KJ Bolden like, we have monsters out there. I think he was referred to, man, I can't tell you how hard it is to guard Noah Thomas on the right at 6'3", just a big, really strong receiver that we brought in from Texas A&M. And then you got Colby Young on the other side, 6'3", really big physical. He said it gets weird when those two guys are in on the same snaps. That, to me, like, I don't want to get overly excited about wide receivers, but man, to be able to line 2 6'3s up over there is exciting. And in the mix, I mean, there's so much. I mean, I'm so excited about Taylor Taylor, adding him in the fold, seeing what the new tight ends can bring to the mix, and also seeing what some of the vets that are coming back. Obviously, I was super excited to see what Nitro Tuggle would bring. We're really in limbo to know now what he's going to add, but Sokovie White's still in there. A lot of people are talking about Sokovie's first freshman year last year, and they talked about how strong he was as far as preparation, waiting his turn, practicing really well, knowing what was needed to become a key playmaker for Georgia's rotation this year. So I don't know, man. It's gonna be wild, but it really excited me to hear about Zach Branch, Noah Thomas, and what those 2 6'3s with Colby Young on the field at the same time look like. And to hear KJ, and I consider KJ a really freakish. I mean, and you add Dylan Bell in there, and one can only hope if we can get really solid play out of those two, Zach Branch, Noah Thomas, Colby Young, and then mix in, London Humphreys, and mix in, Dylan Bell. I mean, Dylan Bell's got a lot to show this year. I mean, this is his year. This should be his year. If he's going to show the NFL his talent and can bring some of those, 2 years ago ways back, this could be a really big year for Dylan Bell, as we said last year. But we just don't know which Dylan Bell is going to show up. The drops, the physicality issues, the things that boded well for Dylan Bell his first year were not things that were there. I call it, his sophomore campaign type thing. So we're hoping for bigger things from him, because I think if it can get incredibly dangerous with those type bodies in our wide receiver core catching passes. Super excited for that. Don't forget G-Day, 18 days, April 12th, not televised, but we'll see kind of what it comes to. Give a real quick plug if I haven't already done so. If you're not already doing so, make sure you go follow us on Facebook, YouTube, trying to get to 1,000 followers on YouTube. So make sure you're going and following us on YouTube, as well as the Twitter, Instagram, and then Apple Podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts 24 hours after this show airs, so that you can listen to it. It's not live, obviously, but you can follow up, listen to the show, kind of tune in to what's going on your ride into work. Or if you're just hanging out and want to turn a podcast on, we hope you pick us, Dogs Down South. Make sure you go follow us on all of those social media handles. We surely will appreciate it, as well as TikTok. So really quick, with a few minutes left, flying solo tonight. I don't like to go over 45 minutes, so it just you don't want to hear me for an hour. So I thought we'd do a pretty cool take on buy and sell. And there's 5 questions that have come out during this entire time, listening to a ton of SEC podcasts throughout the last few months, and talk about the offseason and expectations coming up this year. And I thought it'd be cool to pose just 5 questions from around just Georgia, not SEC, and talk about buy or sell. And obviously with buy, it's, buy would be you think it's true. It's definitely something you would buy into and think will be happening. And obviously sell, get it out of here. You don't want any part of it because you don't think there's anything of it that can happen. Take a little swallow of water. So the first one that I wrote down here is very popular. A lot of people talking about Gunner, but not a lot of people talking about Gunner outside of of UGA. I've seen him way down the depth chart per se of sports writers thinking that Gunner is going to be a very productive SEC quarterback for Georgia. But also, if you remember correctly, nobody thought Stetson Bennett would be productive either. And he went on those 2 years to lead the league in passing yards, lead the SEC in passing yards both of those years. Well, I take that back. I think he was like 4th or 5th one year. Then the next year, he definitely did. He threw for over, I think, 2,400 yards. But Gunner Stockton, right? So here's one, buy or sell. Gunner Stockton has a Stetson Bennett-like season, throwing for over 2,000 yards. Now, pardon me. The only reason I would sell this is because I think if Gunner has to throw for over 2,000 yards, that means once again we've had a lot of problems running the football. And I do believe that, I do believe that in order to get Georgia back to the SEC championship comfortably, win some of these tough games that we have, a couple ones on the road, a couple of really tough games at home, I think we're going to have to get back to Georgia football where the run opens up the pass. That was why Stetson Bennett was extremely successful. Not to mention Todd Monken putting the offense in great situations where his offense was centered around putting the ball into the playmaker's hands. So honestly, with number one, I'm going to sell on this one because I do think that if Gunner Stockton has to throw for 2,000 yards, that I don't know how successful Georgia will be next year if he has to. If he does, still have a really good chance of being successful. That just means we're playing, the run is going to complement the pass. And I love that for Gunner. I love that for our wide receiving crew because we've done a really good job in the portal and obviously recruiting in our wide receiver room. So, yeah, but I love our wide receiver and also our tight end room that does not need to be slept on this year. With the returns of Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky, people like Redden and Colt Heinrich and the new faces, Ethan Barber, Elias Williams. I mean, this is a studly tight end group. And so, I would just venture out to say that if we have to depend on that, though, I'm going to sell because I don't think it paints a good picture for us getting back to the Georgia days of old when we were a little bit more balanced. I don't think you're into that college football, DNA mantra of you got to be balanced to win football games. I don't know. I think you just have to show a threat in one of those areas. If you're a 70-30 run team, you have to be able to do the 30 pretty perfect. In other words, you're going to have to play action. You're going to have to hit some big time hits here or there to sustain drives, but you're relying on the run to kind of churn the offense. Whereas flip, you're relying on the pass to churn the offense, but you're going to have to catch them off guard every once in a while and keep them from just dropping, 5-6 into the secondary and, blitzing 3 or 4 and being able to get pressure like that. I mean, those teams are very successful in college football. If you're able to get pressure with 4 guys, even 5 nowadays, you're doing something right, especially with these big offensive lines. So I sell on that because I'm just saying if Gunner has to have 2,000 yards, then I hate to say it, we're probably not going to be going forward in the era of great offensive line play and being able to run the football at Georgia. Number 2, true freshman starts on the D line. Now, obviously, I put this question in there or this buy or sell because I like Elijah Griffin. And I like Isaiah. Isaiah Wynn. So at the end of the day, I would tell you that out of those two, man, it's tough. But I will tell you that it's all going to be based off of this. The question really is Georgia going to be healthy enough to where somebody like that has to start because of health issues or because they just are too good to keep off the field? Now, me personally, I just think Elijah Griffin is going to be way too good to keep off the field. I think Isaiah Gibson may just be too good to keep off the field. And who knows? I mean, Zayden Walker, such a talented kid. I mean, these are 98. Elijah Griffin was 100. I mean, you're talking about the number 3 nationally ranked player in the United States and the number 1 in his position group. And you're looking at the number 1 in his position group and Isaiah Gibson out of the edge group. I mean, it's crazy, but I'm going to buy this one because I think Isaiah Gibson will be too good to keep off the field this year. Just do. No matter, and we need guys to step up on that front line. We need Christian Miller to step up this year. We need Hall to step up this year. We need some key components of that defensive line to step up, and I think Isaiah Gibson is a person that's going to have to get physical and get going quick as a freshman. Number 3, Mike Bobo reaffirms himself as a championship play caller. Now, if you go back and check some of my lives and podcasts from last year, or shall I say last season, it's pretty down on Mike Bobo. It's hard. This is a hard one because if I sell this, then there's a very good chance that Georgia fans see us in the same dilemma as last year, where we're just frustrated with the play calling, and no matter how well our receivers are catching the ball, we're blocking and running the ball. If Mike Bobo can't put us in the right sets, put us in the right play calls to be successful, it's not going to matter. Now, but here's my answer. I'm going to buy this, and I'll tell you why. Because I think Kirby will address the tough issues this year. I think I'm still calling it the elephant in the room on offense is the inability to run the football between the tackles and the inability to get the ball to the playmakers. So if we improve on our offensive line scheme, and we've added improvements there, Lily, and I don't know the guy's name from Jacksonville, but we've added, off the field assistants that have NFL experience to come in and help coach blocking and our tight ends and catching. But I think most of what they're coming in for is line play. I think we're addressing that, and I also think if we can get healthy, I think Rod Robinson and I think Branson can add some thunder and lightning to Frazier. And some of those quick to Cash and some of those quick guys that we have back there. So even though I answered it one way, I'm going to buy Mike Bobo reaffirming himself as a championship play caller this year, pending that those things happen. Number 4, Nate Frazier, 1,000-yard rusher. It's a tough one. This is a tough one. I want this to happen, obviously, as a Georgia fan. Every Georgia fan would say, I want this one to happen. I personally will tell you if Nate Frazier gets 1,000 yards rushing this year, we will not only be in the playoffs, but we will do some big time damage. I don't think that Frazier sees 1,000 yards this year. And I'll tell you why. It's because we're best. We're going to be best this year if Branson and Rod Robinson and Frazier and Cash stay healthy. And if those 4 guys are sharing handoffs and sharing passes and blocking duties, we will win more football games. And I think at the end of the day, we all know that's the sole goal. Everybody buys into that. That's tradition. That is standard at Georgia, is to win football games. It's we over me. And so I'm going to sell here and say Nate Frazier is not going to get 1,000 yards. However, I'm hoping that's because the productivity amongst that room, that Branson gets back to possibly what Branson could be before the 2 injuries. That Rod Robinson gets back to, man, what Rod Robinson could have added before the turf toe and ankle injury, right? And what can Bo Walker and can Cash help us in a different way? Can some of these guys can they be able to step in and help us in a crucial way? I'm hoping so. And the last one, undefeated season for the Dogs, easy one. It's a broad question, buy or sell, right? So many games on that schedule that you can look at and go, they're trap games on the road. I mean, obviously we get Ole Miss at home, we get Alabama at home, we get Texas at home, we get Kentucky at home, we get but there's tough road games, and there's possibly a well improved Auburn team that Georgia has to go to Jordan Hare to play them. You got a good Tennessee team that Georgia has to open SEC play in Knoxville. So it's tough. But man, it's so tough because this says that I have to kind of go with this, because I'm going to be asked this question 1,000 times more before we actually kick off the first time. But to end it tonight, I will say I think it's doable. So I don't know. I'm going to push on this one. I'm not going to buy or sell yet. Not enough information. I'll call this is an early sale, and kind of like candles at Bath and Body Works. It's like they'll go on sale again, right? This one will come up again where there's more info here to really see how dominant some of these areas of our team are, or maybe they're not dominant enough, and they're not going to pick up the slack for some of these areas that are young and trying to develop into something special very early on. We don't have a lot of rest. I mean, you got a couple of games, and then you're right into SEC play on the road in Knoxville, game 3. So tough schedule. But yeah. So next time we go live, hopefully we will be talking big time lead up to G-Day, more information possibly on live practice stuff. I'm going to do a deep dive into what's going on, what we're seeing in practice. Obviously, we'll get a lot again from Kirby's weekly presser coming up again soon. But yeah, moral of the story is, man, I like what's going on, at least from a coaching side right now with Kirby. He's setting the tone in middle of March, spring practice, and he's saying, we need to be ready now. Like, we need to learn how to practice now. We need to get into shape now. We need to, I think his quote was incredible. We need to thrive, not survive. And right now we're surviving. And so my hope is that we use this spring practice to learn how to practice efficiently and to thrive, and to take what we've learned and how we've grown in these last 30 some odd days, 15 or so practices, and use it as fuel for an incredible season. So as always, you can catch us on Facebook. Go follow us on Facebook, YouTube. Trying to get to 1,000 followers. Hit us up on the YouTube, Twitter, X, and Instagram. Go find us on all those. TikTok as well. Dogs Down South. And then 24 hours later on Apple Podcasts, we're live. We'll be over there. Recording of this show to a T. We'll be over there, so you can listen to it in your car, pick it apart, and get some good information from tonight's show. So episode 53 will be going up less than 24 hours from now. For myself, for my colleagues, Adam Fisher, Richman, who I missed tonight, hope you guys have a great remainder of the week, and looking forward to G-Day. And as always, go Dogs.